let's take a moment to appreciate that Jesper wore a skirt for the entire second half of this season.
Crazy about a shirtless man. Ironic.
Hey, you geeks! Six of Crows was the first fan-recommended book I read and reviewed on this channel. I enjoyed it and followed it up shortly with Crooked Kingdom, the Six of Crows sequel. I then went back to the beginning and tried to cover Shadow and Bone. That review didn't go so well, and then I read its sequel and did not feel the need to review that. Let's just say that my reviews on this channel skew positive because there's just an entire void of books that I've read and refuse to talk about.
We don't talk about Bruno, no.
So I had mixed expectations going into Shadow and Bone Season 2, and what follows is a list of 10 mixed reviews that skew towards the positive. Spoiler warning for Shadow and Bone Seasons 1 and 2, as well as the Grishaverse through Crooked Kingdom, and I make homages to The Wheel of Time and Mistborn Era 1. You have been warned. Time is relative. The first episode suffered the most from an unstable timeline.
From a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
The best I can figure is that the Ketterdam plotline happened while Mal and Alina were on the boat from Ketterdam to Novia Zem. Once in Novia Zem, Mal and Alina have just one short day.
One short day in the Emerald City,
in which to meet the Robkin refugees from a different catastrophe than the Season 1 finale.
It keeps growing.
Alina can go to the public library and find the ancient map that has eluded scholars for centuries, and hear all the gossip.
She and the Darkling are the reason why we are here, with nothing.
You are right.
Giving time for the privateer Nikolai to swoop in at the end and not apparently fly from Ketterdam to Novia Zem. I then presume that the Ketterdam plotline runs about a month ahead of the Robkin plotline until the midpoint where the Crows have their club back and Ravka calls for aid. But before that, our Robkins have to have a little sea voyage. No curb stomping. In the books, the Grisha's color-coded keftas were strictly adhered to. Anytime Alina was doing something Grisha-y, she was wearing a blue kefta. Thus, in Siege and Storm, we have a saintly woman in blue taking on a serpent, and there is absolutely no curb stomping. With such heavy-handed symbolism already at play, I wondered while reading the book, why did she even bother? The show fortunately took a different angle than Siege and Storm, with it being Alina's idea to go after the Sea Whip and not just her caught up in the privateer's plans.
And how do you plan on doing that exactly?
By hunting Moritzova's Sea Whip.
Lena.
Also, they don't rely so heavily on the color-coded keftas of the Grisha. Maybe they've seen other shows rely a bit too heavily on the color-coded magic wielders and didn't want to compete. Though it's unclear if they really think that the audience is smart enough to remember who has what power, as the trade-off is, instead of showing us their powers, they have to tell us.
You're here.
With the new Heartrender.
Nina Zenik.
Again?
Heartrender. Meet the newest member of my crew.
And again.
Nina Zenik, Heartrender.
Which which sometimes isn't too obnoxious as we get to know more about our characters' backstories. This is your backstory.
All of your most deeply suppressed memories will appear right on this screen.
Crooked Kingdom, the Six of Crows sequel, was a rather straightforward plot of the crows starting at the bottom of the barrel, overcoming their inner demons, and taking over Ketterdam. It was simple, yet effective, because we got to know the crows' backstories so well that we felt their emotional victories so strongly. The show leans into this a lot, mostly with Kaz's backstory. Followed closely by Jesper's.
If you weren't Grisha, you would still be alive.
If I hadn't drawn the poison from her small body into my own, she would have died.
It's really a pity that we only get hints at Inej's.
I was hoping to have a lead on this by now. I've been sending spies to the auctioneers to see if anyone remembers a slaver by the name of Gregor or Griggs.
You've been looking for my family.
Having read Crooked Kingdom, I know why it's emotionally satisfying for her to end up on a boat, but the show didn't really do the work to get us there for her. While I like that we learned the characters' backstories, I do think that the poison room was a bit contrived and almost unbelievable at how unprepared the crows were to take on that little heist maneuver. They just walked through the front door of a house they cased 5 seconds ago?
It has a specific layout. We enter through the front courtyard, antechamber, middle courtyard, main chamber.
Really? But this Blade plotline was much preferable to the Blade plotline of Siege and Storm. I am become Blade. The second part of Siege and Storm that I recall was the siege, during which we spend our time with Alina in a love triangle, deciding who should she choose, the Darkling, Mal, or Nikolai.
Just kill me now!
And that's it. It is so boring I wanted to gouge my eyes out. It reminded me of another Siege-based book that was slightly more tolerable because I did a review of it. In the books, Mal gets super whiny and petty about the diverging interests of him and Alina.
But we came here to unite Ravka.
You came here for Ravka. I came here for you.
He resolves this plot line in the third book by resigning himself to be Alina's sword and gets a huge tattoo on his back saying, "I am become a blade." This is just utterly ridiculous, and even hardcore fans make fun of this. I am so grateful that the show chose to incapacitate Mal not because of his feelings getting hurt, but because he was kidnapped by the other prince. Admittedly, this plotline has a rather anticlimactic ending.
Oh, where did my scout find you? I found him coming out of a well that led down here.
And the whole idea of Alina needing a sword gets fulfilled by the crows going and literally getting a sword. Neither of these show-created plotlines were perfect, but I think they did a really good job of improving problems with the books while also finding things for the crows to do and be engaged in the Ravkan story. Roll out the barrel.
We got the blues on the run.
The Ketterdam midpoint plot was lifted more or less straight from Crooked Kingdom, and I really enjoyed that they kept that it's an attack on a feast day of Pekka Rollins's Kaelish, definitely not Irish, establishments.
Any holiday that mixes cold brew with a little light role play is fine by me.
This also makes the March 15th release date, so close to St. Patrick's Day, an apt choice for a release. Anywho, the show also made a good adaptation choice, as we get to see Kaz fight to take over the Dregs. In the first season, the show had changed that the Crows were their own club instead of just the junior members of the Dregs. Doubling down on that change, the show keeps Kaz's fight to win the Dregs, but makes it a much bigger and bolder move, which also makes the show toe the line between what is acceptable YA suspension of disbelief and acknowledging that we're watching 20-year-olds play teenagers. Either way, it looks cool, and I'm okay with that. This bigger takeover did stretch my suspension of disbelief for a YA television show, which by its nature is still something quite different from YA literature. So this was an adaptation issue that the show was going to face, even if they lifted the plot line by line from the book, especially the line about being killers.
I'm here for the killers. People like me.
Kaz says this line in complete seriousness, then goes and kicks some Dreg behind, and proceeds not to kill anyone. The show does have a body count, with our heroes killing some of the villains, but the show's attempt at making the audience empathize with the villains feels half-hearted and forced.
First Army did this to Nisho. Tortured him. A hot bayonet to the cheek.
Hung him until they broke his voice, don't forget that part.
It's like Hollywood isn't comfortable with having young adults feel morally conflicted about the actions their heroes take.
The boulder's over his conflicted feelings, and now he's ready to bury you in a rock-a-lanche.
This moral conflict and ability to show how people still view their actions as good, even when they're doing terrible things, is a thing that I really liked about Bardugo's writing, and I'm sad this wasn't quite conveyed on screen. But there are many things that I am so happy were conveyed on screen, even if they weren't in the books, such as Jesper's skirt. Let's take a moment to appreciate that Jesper wore a skirt for the entire second half of this season. As a skirt and fashion history enthusiast, I truly appreciate how pattern-wise of a tartan and a solid brown would be completely acceptable for a Scottish lord to wear as a three-piece suit and kilt combo.
You see, they bring their boys up different in those charming foreign ports.
But the show's originality, adding in magenta and flipping the patterns, make Jesper's look a truly original character design that we haven't seen before. So I'm here celebrating the success of Jesper's skirt, tapping into that universal truth of men wearing skirts far longer than they've been wearing pants and looking darn good while doing it.
I just happen to look fantastic while being an excellent show.
Criminally underutilized. Lopin and I were very disappointed at how underutilized our Fjerdan Wolfboy was, being stuck in Hellgate the whole season. In the books, breaking him out of Hellgate was super easy, barely an inconvenience. While the show...
I can't get you a release from Hellgate.
The show did try to make Matthias's plot interesting, giving us a likable Fjerdan who is also faithful to Jell. And is of course killed off by Pekka Rollins to prove that he really is a bad guy. This also interestingly raises the moral question of what's the point of sparing your villains and throwing them in jail if by being in jail they just expand their criminal enterprises.
You take a run on me, and I will snap you in two. Work for me, and I'll get you what you want.
This this trope Bardugo never really addressed in her work that I've read so far, though there was certainly a place for it amongst her themes. Also, it's not so overdone that it feels trite. Unless you're Batman.
You won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness.
But Batman at least has great fight choreography. Hit and miss. For a fantasy action-adventure show, this show really did try to have engaging fight scenes. Yet, I found the camera work to be quite stale in most of them, and it really did nothing to hide the fact that the actors were just lined up to go at each other one by one and hit their marks. I did like the addition of the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Wire Fu style of fighting while they were in Shu-Han, because seeing women fly through the air in Chinese court dress makes me really happy.
I'm so happy.
And then in the final fight scene, there was this wind wall of doom that gave me flashbacks to a movie which does not exist. This is unfortunate because the magic effects otherwise looked pretty decent. I do hope they improve on this for next season, assuming, of course, there is a next season. There are no endings. For all of its deviations from the plot, the show does go out of its way to make homages to the books.
5 of...
and lift some lines right off the page.
But what's inside you? It's steel. It's brave and unbreakable, and it doesn't need fixing.
Including the iconic ending to Ruin and Rising.
An ordinary life. Full of ordinary things. If love can ever be called that.
Which is impressive because the show completely changes the ending. Instead of our heroine walking off into the sunset while her body double burns on a pyre in a sequence that gave me profound deja vu when I read A Memory of Light, we get something completely different. 3 women in front of a pyre of a man who they all loved.
No grave. Nothing left.
But also hated. Okay, the show has enough going on that subtext-wise it is completely different, and I see it more as a polite nod than a blatant ripoff. But more importantly, it actually has Alina take her place at the side of the new king of Ravka. I do realize that this kind of just stretches the love triangle dynamic that I complained about in the middle of these books, but they've added new layers. It dives deeper into the trope of the hero striving to become someone who can save everything she loves.
You'd have to use Merzost. Swear to me you'll never use it.
I swear.
You will not know what price it demands until it is too late.
While in the process become the sort of person who can no longer enjoy that which she loves.
He could save others from death, but not himself.
All of this is far more interesting than the raging teenage hormone mess that I got out of Siege and Storm. Not to mention, we're finally seeing the Jurda Parham plotline, which was my beginning in the Grishaverse, though of course not the beginning. I truly hope that this isn't the end of Shadow and Bone on Netflix. Season 3 hasn't been renewed yet, and knowing Netflix, they probably won't. Which is such a shame because this story clearly isn't over yet, and despite its faults, I really enjoyed it, making it the best fantasy TV show of 2023 thus far. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. And leave a comment letting me know if I should try reading Siege and Storm again, or go ahead to read the new books Leigh Bardugo has written.